In the spring of 1943, the Allied forces stood at a critical crossroads. After years of brutal conflict, they were finally ready to strike at what Winston Churchill called the soft underbelly of Europe. But to succeed, they would need more than just military might, they would need deception. On April 30th, 1943, a fisherman discovered the waterlogged body of a British officer washing ashore near Huelva, Spain. In his handcuffed briefcase, letters containing the Allies' most guarded secrets about their planned invasion of Greece. Within weeks, Hitler had diverted massive forces to defend Greece, strengthening positions across the eastern Mediterranean. But the dead officer was a ghost, his identity fabricated, his secrets elaborate lies, and the real invasion target was never Greece at all, but Sicily. This is the extraordinary story of Operation Mincemeat, one of the most audacious deceptions in military history, where British intelligence used a dead man's body to change the course of World War II. By early 1943, the Allies had successfully pushed the Axis powers out of North Africa. The next logical step was to invade Europe itself, and Sicily was the obvious target, a stepping stone to Italy. But therein lay the problem. Sicily was so obviously the next target that the Germans had already heavily fortified the island. A frontal assault would result in catastrophic casualties. In wartime, truth is so precious that she should always be attended by a bodyguard of lies. The solution was Operation Barclay, a massive deception campaign to convince the Germans that the Allies were targeting Greece and Sardinia instead of Sicily. At its heart was a plan so outlandish that it seemed impossible to succeed. Operation Mincemeat. The operation originated from the secretive halls of British naval intelligence, where two officers were about to embark on an extraordinary mission. Captain Ewan Montagu of the Naval Intelligence Division and Flight Lieutenant Charles Cholmondeley of MI5 were tasked with the seemingly impossible, convincing the German High Command that a dead body washing ashore in neutral Spain was a genuine casualty carrying authentic top-secret documents. The concept wasn't entirely original. In fact, it had been suggested years earlier in what was known as the Trout Memo, a document containing 54 ideas for deceiving the enemy. Idea number 28 read a corpse dressed as an airman with dispatches in his pockets could be dropped on the coast, supposedly from a parachute that had failed. Many believe this memo was actually written by a young intelligence officer named Ian Fleming, the future creator of James Bond. The first challenge facing Montagu and Cholmondeley was finding a suitable body. It had to be someone who appeared to have died from drowning or exposure after an air crash at sea. They consulted Sir Bernard Spilsbury, Britain's foremost pathologist, who advised them on what kind of body would be convincing and how to preserve it properly. After discreet inquiries, they found their man a body that had recently died in St. Pancras Hospital. His true identity remained classified for decades after the war. In 1996, the truth was finally revealed. The body belonged to Glyndwr Michael, a homeless Welsh labourer who had died in January 1943 after ingesting rat poison. Whether by accident or suicide remains unclear. His parents were deceased, leaving no one to object to the use of his body. Not everyone is convinced that Glyndwr Michael was the man used. Some historians believe the body may have belonged to John Melville, a serviceman who died when HMS Dasher sank in March 1943. The debate continues to this day. Whoever he was in life. In death, he would become Major William Martin of the Royal Marines, a fictional officer created with painstaking attention to detail. The intelligence officers created an elaborate backstory for their fictional major. They gave him pocket litter, the everyday items a person carries, keys, cigarettes, matches, theater ticket stubs, even a stern letter about an overdrawn bank account. They created a fiancée named Pam, portrayed by MI5 clerk Jean Leslie, and included a love letter and receipt for an engagement ring. To make his uniform authentic, intelligence officers wore it around London to give it a naturally worn appearance. What made Operation Mincemeat so brilliant was its understanding of human psychology. The Germans wouldn't just examine the official documents, they would scrutinize the personal items to determine authenticity. The little details matter most when you're trying to sell a lie. Most crucial were the official documents, a personal letter from Lieutenant General Sir Archibald Nye, Vice Chief of the Imperial General Staff, to General Harold Alexander in North Africa, outlining plans for invading Greece, with only a passing mention of Sicily as a diversion. The genius was in the subtlety. The letter didn't explicitly state, "We're invading Greece." Instead, it casually referenced it as if it were common knowledge. This approach is far more convincing than an obvious plant. On April 17, 1943, the body of Major Martin, preserved on ice in a special container, was transported by van to Holy Loch, Scotland. There, Montagu and Cholmondeley boarded the submarine HMS Seraph with their unusual cargo. After a tense 10-day journey, dodging enemy patrols and surviving 2 bombing attempts, HMS Seraph arrived off the coast of Huelva, Spain in the early hours of April 30th. We treated him with the respect due to one of our own. The captain read from the Book of Common Prayer before we slipped him into the water. By daybreak, a local fisherman discovered the body and alerted authorities. Now the waiting game began. The Spanish conducted an autopsy but, crucially, didn't notice anything suspicious about the cause of death. The British consul, who was present, ensured the examination wasn't too thorough. Major Martin was given a military funeral with full honors, his grave still visible in Huelva Cemetery today. As anticipated, German intelligence agent Adolf Kloss learned of the discovery. Initially skeptical, his interest was piqued when he intercepted communications from London showing British authorities desperately trying to recover the Briefcase, another calculated plant by Montagu's team. The Spanish held on to the briefcase for 9 days before returning it to the British. That was more than enough time for them to steam open the letters, photograph the contents, and share everything with their German allies. The documents made their way up the German chain of command, eventually reaching Hitler himself. The British held their breath. Would the Germans take the bait? On May 14, 1943, British intelligence intercepted a game, changing communication from Hitler to Admiral D. Nitz. The message read, "The genuineness of the captured documents is beyond doubt." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Hitler ordered 7 infantry divisions to relocate from Italy to Greece. The elite 1st Panzer Division was moved from France to Greece. 10 more divisions were dispersed throughout the Balkans. Naval and air units were stationed near Sardinia, the only place left unprotected. Sicily. It was a masterpiece of deception. Hitler fell for it completely, even as Allied forces began landing in Sicily on July 9, 1943. Hitler remained convinced for 2 critical days that this was merely a diversion for the real attack on Greece. Sicily fell within 38 days. The campaign completely altered the course of the war. Mussolini was deposed and arrested. The new Italian government signed an armistice with the Allies. Hitler was forced to cancel a major offensive against the Soviets to divert troops to this new front, further weakening the Nazi position on the Eastern Front. This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is, perhaps, the end of the beginning. The full extent of Operation Mincemeat's success wasn't revealed until after the war. When asked about its impact, Montagu modestly replied, "Hitler swallowed mincemeat whole." Glyndwr Michael, the homeless Welshman who in death became Major William Martin, remains buried in Spain. His gravestone now acknowledges both identities, reading William Martin, born on the 29th of March 1907, died on the 24th of April 1943. Glyndwr Michael served as Major William Martin, RM, for Ian Fleming, who may have first proposed the kernel of the idea. The experience would later influence his James Bond novels, where truth and deception often blur in the shadowy world of espionage. Operation Mincemeat remains the gold standard of strategic deception. It reminds us that in warfare, sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a gun or a bomb, but a carefully crafted lie. Today, military strategists still study Operation Mincemeat as a masterclass in deception. Its lessons about human psychology, attention to detail, and strategic misdirection remain as relevant in the age of cyber warfare as they were in the days of physical documents. In the annals of military history, few operations have achieved so much with so little. A single corpse, a briefcase of fake documents, and a team of brilliant minds changed the course of World War II and saved countless lives. A homeless man who died alone in London became the soldier who never was, yet helped win a war. In the world of deception, sometimes the greatest victories leave no trace at all.